A man in a tailored charcoal suit walks into Judge Caprio's courtroom as if the floor itself belongs to him. Polished shoes, diamond cufflinks, a wristwatch that could pay someone's rent for a year. His name is Adrian Cole, chief executive of a booming logistics tech firm valued at over $1 billion. He's used to boardrooms, not benches. Used to applause, not accountability. Today he's facing 3 traffic violations: reckless driving, failure to yield, and disorderly conduct. But to him, it's a 5-minute inconvenience. He expects the judge to glance at his record, accept a fine, and let him return to the empire waiting outside. After all, Adrian Cole doesn't follow rules. He writes them. The courtroom murmurs as cameras roll. He flashes a practiced smile meant for shareholders and leans back, radiating superiority. Judge Caprio studies the file, silent. Then he looks up, calm but curious. "Mr. Cole, are you ready to begin?" The CEO smirks. "Let's make this quick." In that moment, no one yet realizes they're about to witness one of the most jaw-dropping exchanges ever captured in this courtroom. A man who thinks his wealth grants him immunity is about to learn that respect still outranks money, and that ego, once exposed to real authority, collapses faster than any market crash. By the end of this story, reputations will crumble, a courtroom will erupt, and millions online will debate a single unforgettable moment. Before we begin, tap subscribe and leave a comment below if you believe no one, no matter how rich or powerful, should stand above the law. Welcome to Real Judge Stories, where arrogance meets accountability. It's 9:30 a.m. on a crisp Wednesday morning inside the Providence Municipal Court. The usual cases: parking tickets, noise complaints, minor violations, move quickly. Then the bailiff calls. Case number 1847, Adrian Cole versus the City of Providence. The name alone draws glances. Everyone's heard of him, the man behind Cole Dynamics, the tech giant that powers half the state's logistics network. His company vans crowd the highways. His ads fill the city's billboards. On paper, he's a local success story, brilliant, disciplined, self-made. But this morning, success wears impatience like armor. Adrian walks to the podium with a confidence that borders on arrogance. Every gesture is calculated. Chin lifted, shoulders squared, coat unbuttoned, just enough to show his designer watch. Behind him, a small entourage of assistants sits quietly, phones in hand. He doesn't even glance at them. He expects obedience by default. Judge Caprio adjusts his glasses, looking over the file. His tone is measured, professional. "Mr. Cole, you're cited for reckless driving in a residential area, failure to yield to a pedestrian, and refusing to cooperate during the stop. How do you plead?" Adrian sighs, an audible theatrical sound. "Your Honor, I'm sure this can be handled quickly. I was running late for a meeting. No one was harmed. No need to make a production out of it," the courtroom murmurs. His tone is polite, but the subtext is pure dismissal. Judge Caprio doesn't react immediately. Instead, he reads from the report. "It says here you were traveling 62 miles per hour in a 25 zone and failed to stop when an officer signaled you. Is that accurate?" Adrian tilts his head slightly, a smirk forming. "The officer's version might differ from mine. I was simply finding a safe place to pull over." Caprio looks up again. 6 blocks later, the question hangs in the air. Adrian shrugs. "It was rush hour. I didn't want to cause traffic. I was being considerate." Someone in the back laughs softly. Adrian's eyes flick toward the sound, sharp, irritated. He's not used to being laughed at. Judge Caprio continues, flipping to the next page. The report also states that, upon stopping, you refused to provide your license until after you finished a phone call with your chief financial officer. Adrian nods matter-of-factly. "That's correct. The call involved a contract worth several million. The officer could wait 2 minutes." Caprio sets the folder down gently. "Mr. Cole, do you believe a police officer should wait until your business concludes before you comply with a lawful request?" Adrian doesn't miss a beat. "I believe context matters, Your Honor. I'm responsible for hundreds of jobs. A small delay in my world can have big consequences." The air thickens. Caprio's eyes remain calm, but his tone cools slightly. "And yet, the law applies equally to everyone in this courtroom, regardless of their job title." Adrian shifts his stance, crossing his arms. "I'm not saying I'm above the law. I'm saying the law should recognize responsibility when it sees it." That sentence lands wrong. A whisper ripples through the audience. Caprio lets the silence linger, as if giving Adrian a chance to hear how his own words sound out loud. Finally, the judge speaks softly. Responsibility begins with accountability, Mr. Cole, not exceptions. For the first time, Adrian's expression hardens. The CEO mask slips for a split second, ego meeting resistance. The bailiff shifts beside the bench, sensing tension. Caprio turns a page, his tone returning to businesslike calm. We'll review the dashcam footage from the responding officer next. Perhaps that will clarify what occurred. Adrian exhales sharply, muttering, "If we must." Judge Caprio nods toward the screen. "We must." The lights dim slightly as the footage loads. The courtroom quiets. The story everyone thought was simple, a traffic violation, begins to reveal something much larger. Because in this courtroom, for the first time in a very long time, Adrian Cole is not the most powerful man in the room. The dashcam video begins to play on the courtroom monitor. It shows Adrian Cole's black Maserati weaving through narrow neighborhood streets, the engine roaring like it's on a racetrack. A mother pushing a stroller steps back against a fence as he passes. Two teenagers look up from their phones, startled by the blur of metal rushing by. Judge Caprio watches silently, hands folded. The only sound is the soft hum of the recording. The moment the police lights flash, Adrian doesn't slow. He continues for block after block before finally stopping in front of his company's glass headquarters. On screen, the officer approaches cautiously. Adrian sits inside, phone pressed to his ear, finger raised dismissively. 1 minute. The officer waits. A full minute passes. Then another. When Adrian finally lowers the window, his first words are, "Do you have any idea who I am?" The clip ends. The courtroom murmurs. Judge Caprio leans back. "Mr. Cole, is that you in the footage?" Adrian chuckles softly, incredulous. "Of course it's me. I'm not denying that. But let's be honest, Your Honor. This is being blown way out of proportion." Caprio's voice remains calm. "Blown out of proportion? You were driving 62 in a residential zone." Adrian waves a hand. "Empty streets. Perfect control. Not a scratch. Not an accident. You think people like me got where we are by making careless moves?" The phrasing lands like arrogance disguised as logic. Caprio tilts his head. "People like you." Adrian meets his gaze. "Executives, leaders, people responsible for thousands of decisions a day. Sometimes the rules written for everyone else simply don't apply in the same way to us. We operate on different pressure." A collective gasp ripples through the benches. Even the bailiff looks up. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. "Are you saying your status exempts you from following traffic laws?" Adrian smiles, a small, almost pitying smile. "I'm saying there should be perspective. You enforce the law. I create jobs, innovation, revenue for this city. I don't expect special treatment, only recognition of contribution." The judge folds his hands. "The law doesn't measure contribution. It measures conduct." Adrian's voice hardens. "With respect, Your Honor, your courtroom runs on principle. My world runs on results. Without people like me, half this city wouldn't have jobs to drive to." Caprio's tone lowers slightly, carrying weight. "And yet, without people like me, your world would have no rules to keep it from collapsing." The sentence lands like a quiet thunderclap. Adrian exhales, shaking his head. "I didn't come here for philosophy. I came here to pay a fine and move on." Caprio: "You came here for judgment, Mr. Cole, not a transaction." A few spectators murmur agreement. Adrian's jaw tightens. "This is ridiculous. You're making an example out of me." Caprio looks down at the paperwork again. Perhaps the example is already making itself. Adrian steps closer to the podium, voice rising. "You think humiliating me on camera makes you some kind of hero? This court runs on my tax dollars." Caprio finally looks up, his voice calm but edged with steel. "This court runs on justice, Mr. Cole, not donations." The CEO laughs bitterly. "Justice? Come on. Everyone knows this is about optics. You want a viral clip for your little show, don't you?" Judge puts arrogant CEO in his place. "That's what you want?" The courtroom freezes. Cameras capture every word. Caprio's eyes narrow just enough to signal restraint under pressure. "I want respect for the law, Mr. Cole. Nothing more." Adrian smirks again, doubling down. "Respect is earned, Your Honor. And frankly, you're not doing a great job earning mine." There's an audible gasp. The bailiff takes half a step forward. Caprio's tone drops to a quiet warning. "Mr. Cole, I suggest you remember where you are." But Adrian doesn't stop. His ego has the momentum now. "Where I am? I'm in a courtroom run by a man who thinks his robe makes him powerful. You enforce rules you didn't write, and I built an empire from nothing. Tell me again who holds the real power here." The silence afterward feels heavy enough to crush the air. Judge Caprio rises slightly from his seat, not in anger, but in absolute authority. Power without humility isn't strength, Mr. Cole. It's a ticking clock. It always runs out, Adrian scoffs, looking away. We'll see. For a long moment, neither moves. The judge's gaze is steady, unbroken. Then Caprio speaks again, measured and formal. Mr. Cole, your statements have been recorded on official record. I'll allow you one opportunity, just one, to adjust your tone and show respect for this court before we proceed. Adrian looks back with a grin that borders on mockery. You really think a few harsh words change anything for me? I've faced bigger men than you, Judge. Caprio pauses, studying him like a teacher watching a student fail a test they were warned about. Then I suppose this lesson will have to be memorable. The bailiff clears his throat softly. The courtroom remains silent. Everyone senses the storm building, an inevitable reckoning about to unfold. Adrian leans forward on the podium, voice low but defiant. Go ahead, teach your lesson. But remember something. Rules don't apply to people who write them. The line echoes off the walls. It's arrogance distilled into one final statement. Judge Caprio doesn't answer immediately. He simply nods once, slowly, as though he's heard every excuse human pride can invent. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he says, Then today, Mr. Cole, let's see if the rules still recognize you. The next few minutes will make courtroom history. The courtroom feels heavier now, thick with quiet anticipation. Even the sound of a chair creaking seems loud. Adrian Cole's smirk hasn't faded, but his confidence has sharpened into defiance. Every eye is on him. Viewers, staff, reporters, waiting to see if he'll finally realize he's gone too far. Judge Caprio takes a breath, steady and deliberate. Mr. Cole, based on your testimony and demeanor, I am considering a formal contempt citation. Before I proceed, do you have anything you'd like to say in your defense? Adrian exhales through his nose, that same half laugh, half sigh that's more insult than answer. Yeah, he says slowly. I'd like to say this entire process is a joke. You're wasting my time over a few speeding tickets, while there are real criminals out there. You want to teach me humility? Fine. I've got a company to run, and you've got an audience to entertain. The words hang in the air like smoke. Caprio's tone remains even. This isn't entertainment, Mr. Cole. This is accountability. Adrian shakes his head, muttering, Sure, if that helps you sleep at night. The audience shifts uneasily. The judge's clerk looks up from her notes, eyes wide. Then Adrian does something no one expects. He raises his hand, points toward Judge Caprio, and slowly claps. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound is mocking, deliberate, echoing in the chamber. Bravo, Your Honor, he says coolly. You've earned your viral moment, gasps ripple through the room. The bailiff moves forward, but Caprio lifts a hand to stop him. The judge's voice is low now, measured, almost dangerous. Mr. Cole, did you just applaud this court in mockery? Adrian meets his eyes, unflinching. I did. What are you going to do about it? For a second, silence feels louder than any shouting could. Then Caprio stands. The motion is slow, deliberate, and final. The authority in that gesture alone silences the room. Mr. Cole, he says evenly, you've just answered your own question. The CEO's confidence falters for the first time. His jaw tightens, eyes darting briefly to the cameras, realizing the gravity of what he's done. Caprio steps forward, his voice steady but sharp. You believe you're untouchable. You believe power excuses conduct. You're about to learn how wrong you are. The crowd doesn't move, doesn't breathe, because everyone knows what's coming next, the part where the gavel finally falls. Judge Caprio stays standing, the weight of silence filling the courtroom like thunder about to strike. His voice, when it comes, is calm, but it carries the unmistakable tone of final authority. Mr. Cole, I have spent decades on this bench. I've seen anger, arrogance, remorse, and every shade in between. But rarely have I seen someone walk in here convinced that humility is optional. Adrian shifts his weight. The smirk is gone, replaced by the tight-lipped composure of someone finally sensing a loss of control. You said the rules don't apply to you, Caprio continues. Today they do, and they will. He lifts the file, tapping it once against the bench. For reckless driving in a residential neighborhood, placing pedestrians at risk, I impose the maximum fine of $2,500. Adrian exhales, dismissive. I can write that check right now. Caprio doesn't blink. I'm not finished. He flips to the next page. For failure to yield and endangering public safety, an additional $1,000 fine. Adrian's expression doesn't change, but the air around him tightens. For refusing lawful orders and displaying open contempt of this court, Caprio says, voice deepening, I impose an additional $5,000. A rustle of surprise passes through the spectators. Caprio continues without pause. That brings your total to $8,500 payable immediately. But money is not the lesson here. He closes the folder. The gavel rests lightly under his hand. Effective today, your driver's license is suspended for 6 months. You will surrender it before leaving this courtroom. Adrian's jaw drops. 6 months? That's insane. I have meetings, contracts. Then you'll learn to attend them responsibly. Caprio interrupts. Public safety outweighs your calendar. Adrian's voice rises, panic lacing through the bravado. This is excessive. You can't. I can, Caprio says evenly, and I just did. The gallery murmurs. The CEO glances around, searching for a sympathetic face. There are none, Caprio goes on. Additionally, you will complete 50 hours of community service with the Youth Traffic Safety Program. You'll speak to teenagers about reckless driving and the cost of arrogance. Perhaps they'll learn something from your example, even if you haven't yet. Adrian opens his mouth, then closes it again. The courtroom seems to lean closer. You'll also attend an 8-week driver responsibility course, Caprio adds, every Saturday morning. Miss one session and your suspension extends to a full year. The CEO's polished image begins to crack. A flush creeps up his neck. Caprio looks directly at him. And because this proceeding was recorded for public record, the footage will be forwarded to the Providence Public Safety Office as educational material. Adrian's voice drops to a whisper. You're ruining my reputation. No, Mr. Cole, Caprio replies quietly. You did that the moment you mocked this court. He glances toward the clerk. Finally, a certified transcript of these proceedings will be sent to the State Business Ethics Board. They may decide whether someone who disrespects law and authority should continue representing a major corporation. A collective gasp. Adrian steps forward instinctively. You can't involve them. That's my career. Your behavior is part of the public record, Caprio says. Actions have echoes, Mr. Cole. You chose yours. For the first time, Adrian's voice trembles. Your Honor, I was frustrated. The clapping was a mistake. Apology noted, Caprio says. But apologies without accountability are noise. He sets the file aside and folds his hands. His tone softens, not lenient but fatherly. You have influence, Mr. Cole. You built something many admire. But influence without integrity is a weapon. The way you used yours today endangered people, insulted officers, and mocked a system built to protect everyone, including you. Caprio takes a breath. So let me be clear. This courtroom doesn't punish wealth or success. It punishes disregard. You're not here because you have money. You're here because you thought money meant immunity. Adrian lowers his eyes. The silence stretches. When you leave this room, Caprio continues, remember this moment. Remember how quickly power evaporates when it collides with principle. You'll have time, 6 months of it, to reflect on the difference. He raises the gavel slightly. This court is adjourned. The gavel strikes once. The sound echoes like a thunderclap. For a moment, no one moves. Then the bailiff steps forward, extending a hand. Sir, your license. Adrian hesitates, then slowly reaches into his jacket pocket. The small rectangle of plastic, once a symbol of freedom, looks fragile now. He hands it over. Cameras click. The room exhales. As he turns to leave, Judge Caprio's voice calls out one final time. Mr. Cole, Adrian stops. You asked earlier who holds the real power here, Caprio says. Now you know it's the law, and unlike arrogance, it doesn't expire. The CEO swallows hard, nods once, and walks out through the same doors he entered, but this time without the swagger. Behind him, the courtroom remains still. For everyone who witnessed it, the lesson is carved in memory. In Judge Caprio's court, respect is mandatory, not optional. By the time Adrian Cole steps outside the courthouse, the morning sun feels harsher than before. Reporters swarm like a tide, microphones thrust forward, questions overlapping. Mr. Cole, any comment on Judge Caprio's decision? Do you regret your behavior in court? He shields his face with one hand, pushing through the noise. The same cameras he used to invite at product launches now chase him like hunters. His driver isn't there. His car keys were surrendered along with his license. So he walks, The CEO who once arrived in a Maserati now trudges down a cracked Providence sidewalk under the weight of his own headlines. By afternoon, the footage hits local news. By evening, it's everywhere. Rules apply to everyone trends across social media. Clips of his slow clap toward the judge loop endlessly. Millions of viewers dissecting every frame. Some call it justice, others call it arrogance and collapse. Within hours, his name, once synonymous with innovation, is now shorthand for entitlement. Inside the glass offices of Coal Dynamics, board members gather for an emergency session. The video plays on a conference screen, silent except for the sound of heavy breathing and disbelief. The chairman leans forward. "We can't recover from this," she says quietly. He's compromised the brand. A vote follows. It's unanimous. By sunrise the next day, Adrian Cole is no longer CEO. The company releases a brief statement. "We believe leadership begins with integrity." Effective immediately, Adrian Cole has been removed from his position. News outlets amplify it within minutes. Investors react, employees whisper. For the first time in years, Adrian's phone doesn't buzz with opportunity. It buzzes with silence. 2 days later, he returns to the courtroom, not for a hearing, but to complete his paperwork for community service. He's quieter now. No entourage, no suit, just a folded form and a pen. Judge Caprio spots him from across the hall. "Mr. Cole," the judge says, not unkindly. "Your Honor," Adrian replies, voice lower, steady but subdued. Caprio studies him for a moment. "You look different." Adrian nods. "Different week." The judge offers a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Good. That means something changed." Adrian pauses, then says softly, "I used to think rules were for slowing people down. Turns out they're what keep us from crashing." Caprio nods once. "Lesson learned." Adrian signs the form, then leaves quietly. No cameras this time. No statements, just the quiet shuffle of shoes against courthouse tile. Outside, a teenager recognizes him from the viral clip. Instead of laughing, he says, "Hey man." "I saw what happened. That took guts to come back." Adrian doesn't answer. He just nods, gets into a rideshare, and disappears into traffic. The kind he now watches, not commands. For the viewers watching this story unfold, the irony is unforgettable. A man who once claimed the rules didn't apply to him ended up teaching the world exactly why they do. When the headlines fade and the courtroom empties, one truth remains. The law doesn't measure status, it measures conduct. Adrian Cole's fall wasn't caused by a speeding ticket. It was caused by a belief that success places someone above the rules that protect everyone else. In Judge Caprio's courtroom, the lesson was unmistakable. Authority isn't a stage for power. It's a mirror reflecting character. Every decision, every word, every gesture reveals who we really are when no one can buy their way out. The gavel struck only once, but the echo carried far beyond that room, through news feeds, office boardrooms and living rooms across the country. People didn't cheer because a man was punished. They cheered because fairness won, because humility, for one rare moment, stood taller than wealth. If there's anything to take from this story, it's that respect costs nothing. Yet its absence can cost everything: reputation, trust, and sometimes a lifetime of work. Adrian Cole walked into court believing he owned the world. He walked out reminded that the world owns its rules, and that's what we show here every week. Real moments where arrogance meets accountability and justice, speaks louder than ego. Subscribe to Real Judge Stories, and tell us in the comments what you believe true justice looks like. Because here, the gavel always falls on truth, and the lesson always belongs to everyone.